The sun-drenched streets of Pinecrest Estates looked like every Instagram-perfect American suburb. Emerald lawns trimmed with military precision. Identical beige houses with American flags fluttering exactly on approved days. And kids on bikes who never dared leave their designated play zones. But everyone who lived there knew the truth. This paradise was ruled by the Pinecrest Homeowners Association, a bloated little dictatorship dressed up in pastel cardigans and clipboards. The rules were endless and insane. Grass could not exceed 2.5 inches, or you got a $250 fine. Trash bins had to vanish from the curb within 12 hours, or Karen Vance herself would knock on your door at dawn. No vegetable gardens because they were unsightly. No solar panels unless they matched the exact shade of community beige, and God forbid you hung holiday lights that stayed up one day past January 6th. Karen, the HOA president with her helmet of blonde hair, pearl necklace tight enough to choke a conscience, and a smile sharper than a tax audit, enforced every ridiculous edict with the zeal of a medieval inquisitor. It's for the good of the neighborhood. Darling, she'd purr while slapping another violation on your windshield. I was Alexandra Kingston, 26, the youngest face in this retirement age. See, my grandmother Eleanor had founded Pinecrest Estates 30 years ago, back when it was just open fields and dreams. She wrote the original covenants, set up the reserve fund that ballooned into a massive investment portfolio from all those monthly dues, and quietly turned it into a $47 million war chest nobody knew about except her. 3 weeks after her funeral, the vultures circled. I'd been living here quietly, running what everyone called my cute little online business from my home office. They had no clue it was a fintech platform processing $200 million in transactions every single day. The HOA had been tormenting me for months. First, a $500 fine for solar panels Grandma herself had approved before cancer took her voice. Then another for my car parked half an inch over the invisible line. Karen personally delivered the notices, always with that fake sweet tone. We all have to follow the rules. Alexandra, your grandmother would have wanted harmony. I smiled, nodded, and hit record on my phone every single time. Grandma had drilled it into me. Always keep records. People reveal their rot when they think the lights are off. That afternoon, the mahogany conference table in the community center reflected every strained face like a funhouse mirror. I smoothed my plain Zara blazer, no labels, no armor yet, and watched Robert Pace, Grandma's old board ally and now acting president, grip the back of his leather chair like it owed him money. His Rolex caught the light. Karen Vance sat to his right, her husband Michael beside her, their adult kids Diana and Patrick across from me, all wearing those practiced expressions of concern that screamed calculation. Robert cleared his throat. I want to thank everyone for coming to discuss Eleanor's legacy with the HOA, as you know. She left a complicated financial situation with our reserve fund. He let the word complicated hang like a threat. The main question is who will manage her investment portfolio and the charitable foundation she earmarked for community projects. I knew exactly what was coming. I'd overheard Robert and Karen whispering in the garden at the funeral, plotting how they'd take charge for the community's sake while sipping her expensive Chardonnay. Michael jumped in right on cue. We need someone with real experience and financial acumen. Someone who already manages significant assets. He smiled at his father like a trained seal. I kept typing on my phone, quietly starting the recording app. Grandma's voice echoed in my head. Always document the sharks. Alexandra. Robert finally deigned to notice me, his tone dripping like spoiled honey. I know Eleanor spent time teaching you about investments in her final years. It was sweet. But managing a portfolio this size requires actual expertise, not whatever that little online side hustle of yours is. Diana smirked behind her Cartier bracelet, probably bought on credit like everything else in her life. Karen nodded vigorously. Pearls clacking. Exactly. Dear, we can't have amateurs risking our homeowners' money. I looked up calmly. How large do you think grandmothers? Excuse me. The HOA's portfolio actually is Mr. Pace. He waved a dismissive hand. About 12 million last time the board checked. Far too complex for someone your age. The room waited for me to shrink. Instead, I said quietly, actually, it was 47 million as of this morning. I should know. I've been managing every penny of it for the past 3 years. Silence crashed like a gavel. Karen's smile froze mid-snarl. Robert's Rolex hand tightened on the chair until the knuckles went white. Patrick laughed nervously, but it came out like a hiccup. That's impossible. Eleanor would never trust a kid who can't even keep her lawn at regulation height. Michael cut in fast. Show us proof or stop wasting our time. I slid my phone across the polished mahogany. The screen glowed with a balance. $53,426,897.14. Below it, a clean breakdown, tech stocks, real estate trusts, emerging market funds, all green, all growing. The board stared like they'd seen a ghost wearing their stolen money. Karen's voice cracked. This has to be photoshopped. You're just a girl with a hobby website. I took the phone back, smiling for the first time. Grandmother made me her official financial advisor when I was 23. Said she liked how I read market trends. And that little hobby website? It's a fintech platform. We process over $200 million daily. Robert's face flushed the exact shade of an overdue violation notice. Even if that's true, the estate still needs proper oversight from experienced hands like ours. I cut him off gently, pulling a folder from my bag. Let me stop you right there. These are the transfer documents grandmother filed last year. Everything's already been moved to Kingston Trust Management, my company. The room erupted in sputtering protests, but I just sat back and let the silence stretch. They had no idea the real show was only beginning. Robert's mouth opened and closed like a fish yanked from one of the HOA's perfectly regulated ponds. You can't. This is impossible. Eleanor was confused at the end. Karen leaned forward, pearls rattling. Exactly. We all saw how frail she was. She probably signed those papers under duress. The board will challenge this immediately. Diana nodded so hard her bracelet clinked. Yeah. What do you even do besides post selfies and play with apps? This is our community's money. I'll let them rage for a moment, savoring the way their carefully curated HOA dignity cracked. Then I turned my phone again, this time showing a spreadsheet of transactions. Before you call your lawyers, you might want to explain these. Robert's face drained from red to the color of cheap printer paper. The screen listed every unauthorized withdrawal, $250,000 for a board retreat that somehow landed in Karen's husband's Vegas casino account, $180,000 for community landscaping upgrades that paid for Michael's new pool deck, another $320,000 funneled to Diana's charity event that was really her daughter's destination wedding, all disguised in the books as HO expenses while the rest of us got fined for dandelions. Where did you get those? Robert whispered. Grandmother kept excellent records, I said, especially of money borrowed without permission. You might want to ask your wife about the real reason the model home on Maple Lane was quietly sold last year. The conference room door opened and my head of security, Marcus, stepped in holding another thick folder. Miss Kingston, the rest of the board members are ready for the full presentation. I stood, smoothing my blazer. That would be the new Kingston Trust Management Board. I bought majority voting rights in the HOA covenant amendments grandmother filed quietly last year. Robert slammed his palm on the table. This is a witch hunt. We'll sue. I smiled thinly. Before you do, you might want to see the surveillance footage from the community center cameras, the ones grandmother installed herself. They caught quite a few late-night budget meetings where you and Karen were shredding documents. The room went deathly quiet except for the hum of the air conditioner that Karen always insisted run at exactly 72 degrees. 3 years earlier, grandmother had sat me down her study that still smelled of jasmine. "Watch this, sweetheart," she'd said, fingers dancing across her laptop. On the screen, Robert's transfers popped up like clockwork every 15th of the month. He thinks because I'm old, I don't understand modern banking. But I've been tracking every penny since before he wore his first power tie. She showed me the secret accounts, the falsified invoices, the way they siphoned dues meant for roof repairs and drainage into their own pockets. They're turning my neighborhood into their personal ATM while fining single mothers for parking in their own driveways. I need someone I trust to protect what I built. That night, she made me her silent partner. I learned every loophole, every covenant trick. I endured the fines, the anonymous letters calling me that millennial troublemaker, the way Karen's gossip network whispered that I was ruining property values. I smiled through it all and kept recording. Back in the present, Karen tried one last desperate smile. "Alexandra, dear, we can work this out privately. For the good of the community." I laughed softly. "Funny. That's exactly what grandmother said when she discovered you'd been stealing from the very people you claimed to protect." I nodded to Marcus. "Send the full audit to the state attorney general's office. And activate phase 2. As I walked out, I heard Michael's shaky whisper, "Dad, how much did we actually take?" I didn't turn around. Grandmother always said money was like water. It found every crack in a person's character and eventually washed them away. The real storm was just starting. Outside the community center, the perfectly manicured lawns looked the same, but I knew the roots were rotten, and I was about to pull them up one by one. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing the entire drive home. 37 missed calls from Robert, 23 from Michael, 15 from Diana. Even Patrick, the quiet one who usually just nodded along to Karen's nonsense. I tried 5 times. I ignored them all and pulled up the file labeled Pinecrest Protection Protocol, the document grandmother and I had started 3 years ago. Inside were years of timestamps, bank statements, and hidden camera clips. The next morning, Karen wasted no time. A bright orange violation notice was taped to my door before coffee. Excessive noise from home office, $750 fine. Community standards require quiet enjoyment. I laughed out loud. My noise was the sound of their empire collapsing. By noon, the HOA emergency meeting invite hit every resident's inbox. Urgent discussion regarding unauthorized management changes and threats to neighborhood stability. Translation: they were panicking and trying to rally the sheep. I showed up in the same simple blazer, sat in the back row, and let them perform. Robert stood at the podium, voice trembling with righteous fury. "We cannot allow one rogue resident to hijack the entire reserve fund. This is our community." Karen clutched the gavel like a life raft. "Alexandra is too young, too inexperienced, and clearly acting out of personal grudge after all those legitimate fines she received." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. A few older residents nodded, the same ones who'd never questioned why their dues kept rising while the community pool stayed closed for repairs that never happened. I waited until the noise peaked, then raised my hand. "May I address the association?" Robert's eyes narrowed, but the bylaws forced him to yield the floor. I walked to the front, connected my laptop, and the big screen behind him lit up with the same balance sheet. Gasps echoed. "While you were busy measuring grass blades, grandmother and I were growing $47 million for all of you. Here are the real books." Slide after slide showed their thefts reclassified. Karen's board luncheons were actually spa weekends in Napa. Michael's security upgrades paid for his son's sports car. The room shifted from murmurs to angry whispers. One woman in the third row stood. "My roof has leaked for 2 years, and you told me the reserve was empty." Another shouted, "My fines paid for your vacation?" Karen's face twisted. "This is misinformation. We demand a forensic audit by our own people. I smiled. Too late. The state attorney general already has everything. And phase 2 starts now. I press play. Grandmother's recorded voice filled the hall. Calm and clear, dated 1 month before she died. If you're watching this, then my Alexandra has done exactly what I asked. She's protected the legacy I built for every single homeowner here from the people who are robbing you blind while enforcing ridiculous rules. The video showed Karen and Robert laughing in the very room we stood in, toasting with champagne while shredding invoices. Robert, Karen, I gave you positions of trust, and you repaid me with lies. Alexandra has my full authority. Use it. The crowd erupted. Robert tried to shout over the chaos. This video is fake, but the timestamp and the community center clock in the background proved otherwise. People were already filming on their phones. The HOA Karen empire was cracking wide open in real time. I stepped back as residents surged forward demanding answers. Marcus appeared at my side. The AG's office just confirmed receipt. Warrants are being prepared. I nodded once. Let them sweat. Tomorrow they'll learn exactly how deep the roots go. As I left the hall, I caught Karen's eyes, pure panic wrapped in pearls. She'd spent years terrorizing the neighborhood with tape measures and violation stickers. Now, the tape was on her, and it was about to get very, very loud. The next morning, the community center looked like a crime scene. Federal agents, state investigators wearing serious suits, were already carting boxes of shredded documents out the back door while reporters gathered on the lawn that Karen had once fined me for watering on the wrong day. I arrived at 8:45 sharp in a crisp ST. Lauren blazer. No more Zara humility. Today was war. Marcus met me at the entrance. They're all inside the main hall waiting. Federal agents outside. Press on standby. I straightened my shoulders. Let's finish what grandmother started. The room fell silent when I entered. Robert sat between two high-priced lawyers who suddenly looked very expensive and very useless. Karen clutched her pearls like they could save her. Michael and Diana huddled at one end. Patrick sat alone, staring at his hands. Thank you for coming, I said, taking the head position. Though given the investigators outside, I suspect you didn't have much choice. Robert exploded. This is outrageous. You can't just waltz in here and destroy everything we built. I held up a hand. Everything you stole? You mean? I connected my laptop. The screens filled with banking records. Forged signatures. Money moving between shell accounts labeled community enhancement that went straight to private jets and beach houses. Karen's face crumpled. That's not. We can explain. I clicked to the next slide. Here's security footage from the bank. That's you. Karen, using Eleanor's stolen ID to access the reserve safety deposit box 13 times last year. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Michael tried. The neighborhood needed capital. We were just bridging gaps. I pulled up his statements. You mean your gambling debts needed covering? Strange how every business loss matched your casino withdrawals. Patrick shifted. Some of us weren't involved. I turned to him. Really? Should we discuss the missing scholarship funds that somehow funded your startup? The lawyers started gathering papers, but I stopped them. Don't bother. The investigators have questions about your role in concealing these transactions. Robert slammed the table. You think you've won? You think you could take everything? My voice stayed ice cold. Everything you stole from the people who trusted the Pinecrest name. I pressed another button and grandmother's video played again. This time louder. Her recorded image stared straight at the board. Robert, Karen, I gave you everything and you repaid me with theft. Alexandra has my complete authority to recover every penny, no matter the cost to your reputations. The room was graveyard quiet when it ended. The Attorney General has everything, I said. Every transaction, every lie. But that's not all. The doors opened and a stream of new faces entered. The Real Board of Kingston Trust Management. The company grandmother had built in secret while they looted the public books. That's right, I smiled. The reserve fund you thought you were draining was a shell. The real assets were hidden and managed by the girl you fined for dandelions. Understanding hit them like a violation notice. Robert whispered, "You can't do this." "I already have." Marcus began handing out documents, indictments, seizure notices, restraining orders. "You have 1 hour to leave the property before you're escorted out in cuffs." Diana started crying. Michael looked ready to faint. Karen's perfect hair was coming undone. "Oh, and Karen," I added as I gathered my things. "Grandmother left you something personal." I slid an envelope across the table. The deed to a tiny rundown lot on the edge of town. The trailer park where you grew up before you decided power was more important than people. Her hands shook as she opened it. I walked out to the sound of cameras clicking and residents cheering. The HOA Karen who had terrorized the neighborhood for years was finally, publicly, finished. 1 year later, I sat in grandmother's old garden, now blooming with the roses she loved, reviewing the final reports from the state investigation. Headlines still popped up occasionally. Pinecrest HOA fraud case ends in multiple convictions. Former president sentenced to 12 years. Robert was behind bars. Karen and Michael took pleas and were doing community service, picking up trash on the very streets they once ruled with clipboards. Diana served 3 years. Patrick turned state's evidence and now worked as a junior accountant in a small firm across town. The new Pinecrest Homeowners Association was unrecognizable. No more 2.5-inch grass police. No more flag date dictators. Dues dropped 30% because the Real Reserve Fund, the one I had protected, was actually being used for roof repairs, drainage fixes, and a new scholarship program for neighborhood kids. My phone buzzed with a text from Patrick. "Thank you for giving Emma the scholarship chance." Grandmother would be proud. I smiled. Emma was Diana's daughter. Her grades earned the spot fair and square. Grandmother always said talent shouldn't be wasted, even if it ran in complicated families. Marcus brought my morning coffee and set it beside the stack of prison letters from Robert, each one a desperate mix of apology and pleas for help. I still hadn't answered any. The last restitution payments cleared yesterday, Marcus reported. Every homeowner who was overcharged is whole again. I touched the jasmine perfume bottle I kept on the garden table, grandmother's signature scent. And the new community center tech incubator, board approved. First 20 startups start next month. I signed the papers, thinking of all the young residents who'd been fined into silence the same way I once was. Now, they had real chances. Sarah, Michael's wife, arrived later about the house they'd been ordered to vacate. She looked elegant, even in distress. Alexandra, I know I have no right. The children's trust funds are intact. I cut in gently. Grandmother set them up years ago where Robert couldn't touch them. They'll have enough for college. There's also an apartment in the new complex, 3 bedrooms. Good schools. The trust covers rent until you find work. My HR team has leads if you want them. She stared. Why help after everything? I thought of grandmother tending these same roses years ago. Money is neutral, she told me. It just amplifies what's already in a person's heart. Robert and Karen forgot where they came from. Promise me you'll remember that true wealth is what you build for others. I looked at Sarah. Because grandmother believed in second chances, but only for those who earn them. After she left, I walked through the mansion halls now lined with real family history. Grandmother, as a young woman, breaking ground on Pinecrest. The original covenants written in her own hand. Photos of us at my college graduation. My phone buzzed again. A message from the prison warden offering another visit with Robert. I deleted it. Some bridges stay burned for a reason. Marcus appeared with one last envelope. Heavy cream paper. Grandmother's handwriting. This was scheduled for delivery today. The anniversary. Inside was her final letter. My dearest Alexandra, If you're reading this, you've done exactly what I trusted you would. You protected the legacy and taught some very expensive lessons about character. The money was never the point. It was about who you become when power tempts you. Robert and Karen chose greed. You chose wisdom. True wealth lies in what you build for others. The garden you're sitting in started as dirt and dreams. It needed patience, care, and the courage to cut away what doesn't serve growth. Keep building. Sweetheart, I'm proud of who you've become. All my love, grandmother. I folded the letter carefully around the dried rose petal that fell from its pages. Outside, the garden bloomed stronger than ever. Roots deep and honest. Some fortunes are counted in dollars. But the greatest inheritance I received was proving worthy of an extraordinary woman's trust. And I plan to keep growing it, one fair rule. One helped neighbor, one exposed fraud at a time. The HOA Karen era was dead. The real neighborhood had finally begun.